Second. Hello, welcome to Redefining Entrepreneurship. Making sure we are live on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Say hi if you are here. Let us know if you're watching the replay. Give us a hashtag replay. It is not showing up yet on my feed. So if you happen to be here, please let us know. Okay, well, we might just go live without actually being live. I've done that before. I've literally like gone through an entire like live thinking that I was broadcasting and I wasn't. So hence
Yeah, we're live. You're good.
we are.
We're live.
Okay. Okay. And plus I'm trying to find the link. So I'm sure everybody knows by now, like the differences or the changes that have now made it not able to restrict, there we are, into Facebook groups. So I'm going to go ahead and post this into my group and then we're good to go. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Technology is fun sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It is. Okay, posting
All right.
there.
Well, I'll go ahead and kind of introduce. We were going to kind of have an in-depth chat today, kind of the difference between getting to six figures and then getting to multiple six figures and then getting to seven figures. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, when you're just starting out, you're like, I want to get to six figures. Great. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, then there's a different skill set and a different set of challenges and a different mindset that has to happen to get to multiple six figures. That's great. You've gotten to multiple six figures. Now, what is it going to take to actually go to seven figures? Right? There's different things that need to be priority. There's different things that need to be involved. So we kind of want to have an in-depth conversation. So anywhere you are in that journey, obviously, if you're at multiple six, you're like, yep, I know what you're talking about. The first six was challenge, then the multiple six, but you're like, but that seven figure is eluding me, right? We're going to chat about that. So we want to kind of talk about the different phases in business, and even multiple six can be broken down a little smaller depending on what you typically deal with. But yeah, we just kind of wanted to go in an in-depth conversation. So any questions you guys have as you're watching, or if you're catching the replay, feel free to drop them below. We'll be happy to answer them either live or we'll come back and answer them. So.
Yes, I will do it my best, yes, to address questions as they come up. But something else that has happened, we're using a third-party system to stream live to you, is the comments don't necessarily come through like they used to. So if we miss it, we will come back and answer it in the comments. So please share your questions, because I think this is a really important topic because, like you said, it's like in the beginning, it's all about getting to my first 10K, right? It's all about starting, like getting to that 10K or my first, I don't know what I just said, but to getting to my first 10K, my 10K, because ultimately it's actually less than 10K to reach 100,000 a year, but getting to that first six figures is always kind of that milestone that everybody's going for. And then once you get there, you start to recognize that it's a very different journey to go beyond that. And I know I'll be totally transparent. I did not recognize that when I first started out. I thought that it would just be a breeze. If I could get to $10,000 a month, it would be easy to go beyond that because I would have everything figured out. I'd have my strategies, my systems, everything in place. I know that you understand this.
I've made it. I can do this. If I got to the first six, shoot, the rest is easy, right?
Yeah. No, and I will say I spent way more time and still, because I haven't made it to seven figures per year yet. But I'm still in that phase. But it's been a lot more work, I feel like, for me to move into that next phase because it wasn't as cut and dry and straightforward. I don't feel like it was to get to the first. So I would be curious about your thoughts on that too.
It is, yeah. But before we kind of jump into that, I want to go ahead and address kind of getting to that first six. and then I kind of want to move to that, even 6 to maybe, 500,000 and then 500,000 and up. That first 6 is super tough. You're like, well, great, I have this great idea and I want to do it, and you're motivated and you're going to share it with everybody. What the do you do? Like, how do you get this out other than sharing with friends and family and posting like a maniac on Facebook? And how do you do all that? It's filled with question, right? That stage, like, there's just questions about everything.
I won't just be like, oh, it's so easy. Okay, yes, fair
Right,
enough.
like there's so many questions, and you're very susceptible to shiny object syndrome. Oh, this course is going to tell you how to get to $10,000 in the next 10 weeks or 6 weeks or the next month. I'm going to call bullshit. Does not mean you can't get there. What it means is you have to learn what's going to work for you. So not just because what they teach you in the course worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Doesn't mean it's bad information. Just I would do some fact finding into like someone that's actually going to help you figure out what's going to work for you, not just what someone else figured out. So that's my tip right there. But it's kind of filled with questions. And really 80% of your time needs to be on selling and marketing. Even when you get your first client, even when you get your second client, even when you get your 10th client, 80% of your time is sales and marketing. And what starts to happen, you get those few clients. Oh shit, what do I do in the background? Like, I got to send emails out, and I got to send contracts out, and I got to send invoices, and now I got to handle finances, and now I got to do this. So it brings up more questions, right? How do I handle this? How do I set up this? What the hell is a CRM? I don't even know what that is. What is it? How do you set all of these things up? And what can happen is you get sucked into the back end of figuring out how you do all the things instead of continuing to do the things. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt though, because I don't think that's exclusive to your first 6 figures, because I think it's a problem with moving to your next. I do think that, yes, that's right. In your first 6 figures and getting to that, you're spending a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
But once you've made it, if you're not easily and effortlessly going to that next level, there's a decent chance you're still doing that.
Yeah. No. Very good point. It's just kind of addressing getting to that first 6 it's an easy thing to kind of get sucked in the back end and do it. Now, you do have to figure out how to do it, but just be very cognizant of kind of once you get that momentum and you get going and you've had that $3,000 month and then you've had that $5,000 month and you kind of are on that high. No, you could have a $5,000 month and then a $2,000 month, and then you could bump back up. Like it's a journey, right? Just be cognizant that you kind of need to keep your priority on the sales and marketing end of things, because that momentum is going to drop. Whether you've hit your first 6 or not, or if you already have, it's going to drop unless you keep that engine going. But I kind of equate that first 6 as there's so many questions. There's how, why, and what do you do? Right? It's just a question journey. There's a lot of learning that happens. Just be careful where you go and get your information. Go to folks that are going to help you fact find for you, right? And not just shove their strategy down your throat.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are. You've let me do all the talking. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I like to observe. So yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything that you've said there. I think, and I want to talk more about the next phase, because I think that's who we're talking to, right? We're talking to those of you who've already had this success in your business. So all of the things that you just said, hopefully probably resonate a little bit, right? But now you're in this phase of, okay, but what do I do now? Because you are probably finding, I did all the things, I figured out the systems, I've got it flowing. Now, how do I move to the next layer? the next level, right? How do I make more money? And again, for me, it was like, okay, I've got it figured out. It's a well-oiled machine. Got my team, got this, got that. But what I found with moving to the next level is it was much less of a strategy and systems-based thing. And it was much more of, I don't mindset a little bit, but it definitely is like more of an energetic thing, and really like stepping into a next level version of yourself, becoming a different person. And it's not like you're becoming a completely different person so much as a different version of yourself. And I think when you're first starting out, because you're figuring so many things out, you don't have the level of confidence. And there are some people that have like unwavering confidence. People that a lot of times just keep skyrocketing, right? And you're just like, holy shit, how did they do that, right? But for the most part, your confidence is wavering a bit because you are figuring things out. You don't know the answers to everything, and you just want to figure it out. You want so badly to get to that next level. So then once you hit your 10K months and you're getting those consistently, now it's like, okay, it's easy. But then why did my income plateau? Why am I not going further? What is stopping me? I'm doing everything. And one thing to note too is when you go into a higher level of income, you generally are trying to also work with a higher level of client, and that's something that's not talked about a lot. And the confidence, all of those things that were happening in the early stages start to come up, but in a whole different way. Imposter syndrome, fears, and there's a lot of fear around being into that next level versus I think when you're in that shiny object syndrome like phase, or like really like looking for answers, there's a lot, even though it's a lot of work and there's a lot of getting those answers, it's a lot of curiosity, and you feel okay asking for help, seeking help. But when you get to another level, you also have this image to protect because you've gotten to a certain level and people expect certain things of you, and you have this image that you want to maintain. So you don't feel like you can go out and get all of the help the same way, and you think that you should be at a certain level already. You question yourself. So it's just a complete mind fuck, but not in the way of like mindset. It's like the fear and things that come into your body, it just, I don't even know how to describe it sometimes. It's a completely different phase, and you know it when this is happening because you're like, I'm doing all of the right things. Why the fuck isn't this working?
Yeah. And so then people can handle that differently if they haven't identified necessarily what that's happening. They can start to go back into shiny object syndrome again and throw a lot of money at coaches and advice that isn't actually getting to the root of what's causing things, or they try to grow out wide too quickly. Well, if I just add this and I just add this and I just add this, then that's going to be the big game changer without figuring out actually what's going on. They try to, I kind of equate it to sometimes just throwing spaghetti against the wall, but it's like it's not just like basic spaghetti. It's like gourmet spaghetti, because like you figured a few things
It's like
out.
spaghetti bolognese.
Like, listen, these are the analogies that come out when you're hyped up on decongestant and cough medicine. Okay, just if you all can follow me, great. But it's like gourmet spaghetti, because you're not at the beginning stages where you're just randomly throwing any noodle against the wall, right? Like you've put these things together so they're actually great products and they're great ideas and they're actually great strategies, but you haven't actually got to the core of what's going on. So the bigger you grow, the more complicated things can get, but they don't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
We tend to make them more complicated than they actually really need to be, because we keep throwing things and going, but I did this before and it worked. It may not work to get you to the next level. What brought you where you are today may not get you to the next level. You have to be open to exploring new things. And that is strategy, that is tactics, that is systems, that is automations, that is people and team, and that is you. So it's all of those components combined, where I do see a lot struggle. I don't want to say more. I don't want to classify it more. There's a different struggle between the lower six and the higher six. But where I do see a lot struggle is they haven't identified yet completely that they're blocking their own way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is going to be a much bigger conversation for another day. But we're going to go ahead and touch on it today, that you are blocking your own way, but it's okay. We all do it. You just have to identify it and then figure out what to do, right? Like Lori mentioned, there are a lot of fears that come along with growing a business, especially if you have come from corporate and this may be your first business. It's one thing to work in corporate and you're like, yes, I manage millions of dollars in a budget and I can do all of this. Well, when you run in it yourself, it's a whole nother set of fears.
Millions.
Right. Like it's not quite the millions yet. And you're like, why can't I figure this out? This was so easy before. It brings up a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It forces you to recognize and hopefully address any self-confidence issues you have, any things, and it sounds stupid to some people, but I swear, anything like from your past, traumas, stuff like that. It sounds very woo, but that stuff will seep into the back of your business and will 100% completely block you. And if you won't pay attention, you may not ever pick up on it.
Yeah, and I'll be vulnerable here a little bit for me, because it does seep into things. Like I scaled to six figures very quickly in my business, and I built a team. And I was just like, whoa, like I've got like 9 people on my team, and like I'm so successful, and I've got my shit figured out, right? But then as I started to grow and experience some of these growing pains, I started to experience frustrations within my team. And not because they were bad people, because they weren't. I loved them. And that was part of the struggle, was because I loved these people and I had built relationships with these people on my team. But I started to realize like that something needed to change. So I was going through a bit of an internal struggle, because it's like, but we've built all of this and they know me better than everyone. And I saw them growing with me, and like you had this big vision, but then it doesn't actually work the way you want. So then you start to question a lot of things, and it does send you into a bit of a spiral sometimes. And that's where that, like, getting to know yourself and where you're at and what's right for you in this moment is so important. And then also being able to make the decisions and trust yourself to make those hard decisions. And I didn't do it for a long ass time. Honestly, like I wasn't following the gut feel. I wasn't listening to my intuition, because I was people pleasing. And this is a big problem that is not addressed a lot of times at those lower levels as we're growing our business. When you get to that certain level, like I talk a lot about owning your personal power, right? Stepping into your next level of leadership. And it is different, because I was a leader in the corporate world. I was an executive. So I thought, no problem. I can be a fucking leader in my business. And I can be, and I'm a great one, I think. But I've transitioned. My leadership didn't transition necessarily at the level it needed to in order for me to grow. And that caused me to have a lot of doubts. Caused me to hold on to people in my business, clients, as well as team members that were not that good for me, who were not the people that I needed in my world. And again, does not make them bad people, bad clients. Talk a lot about this too, and like working with the wrong people. And that could be your team, it could be your clients. And you're people pleasing, right? You're trying to like satisfy those people and not hurt their feelings, or change is hard, right, for a lot of people, and you've put a lot of that pressure on yourself. And that is a struggle that you don't face when you start early on. And where, again, I had everything working, I had my big team, and last year I cut it down. I got rid of 3 or 4 people on my team in like 6 months' time. And I haven't refilled those positions. I think one maybe I have. But I've actually found that as I've grown, I need to do a lot less than I used to think that I needed to do. And while my business has simplified, my team hasn't needed to be as big as it used to be. But I couldn't admit that in the past because it felt like a personal failure and like I was failing those people. And I wasn't being the leader that I needed to be because I was worrying more about other people, what they thought, about what it would mean if I failed and all of those things. So I mean, each one of these pieces we're talking about, I feel like could be their own conversations as well. But
they could. And I'm going to pick on you for a second here because I want to pull, since you already brought it up. I want to pull out the piece that there was a lot of that self-awareness already in you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you're sharing that you knew, but you were successful and you did that. You know, but you knew, but there was this. You didn't necessarily know what to make of that. You knew things weren't right.
I didn't know what.
But you didn't know necessarily what to do about it, right? Not because you're a dumb person, like you meant you're an executive in corporate. You ran departments. You're not a stupid person. You've led before. But when you're in it, it is really, really hard to see clearly.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes a very dear friend or mentor to knock you upside the head. Very friendly. No, but it takes sometimes outside trusted advisors to say, hey, have you thought about this? You know, this is why this is happening. And to kind of guide you to say, hey, you know this is off.
Mm-hmm.
This is really why it's off. I'm going to point out all the reasons, whether you see them or not. Now's where the sometimes the tough choices. Now's where the prioritizing of what's important for you and what's important for your business needs to come in to simplify things to actually grow. Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you were very, very aware, but you were very stuck in it.
Mm-hmm. I was very stubborn, honestly. I was stuck in it, but I was also stubborn because I didn't want to admit defeat or failure. I didn't want people to look at me, you know, in a certain way. And like I said, there's a lot of ego tied up once you get to, I think, to a certain level in your business. Because I was self-aware, and while I knew a lot of these things, I didn't want to admit it. I wanted to just like keep trying to fit that, you know, square peg in that round hole and just make it freaking work because I put so much effort into building to where I was. I put so much effort into developing that team, and to admit that they weren't the right people, or to admit that the clients I was working with were not right for me. And it's not, again, like I liked them as people, but they weren't ready for the level of work that I wanted to do. And I was having a really hard time admitting that. And it does take sometimes trusted, you know, mentors, friends, usually not friends unless they're very much in this world with you. I will say that. Don't listen to your friends who are not entrepreneurs, okay? Tell them to go, see you later. I love you. Thanks for being my friend. But they should not be giving you business advice. This includes your family, this includes your partners. They are not your business advisors. So just I want to note that. But you know, that trusted mentor or coach or entrepreneurial buddy is going to sometimes take them pointing those things out. And sometimes you may not listen. If you're like me, if you are a human design type 1-3, you are not going to listen. You're going to come back a year from now and be like, shit, Lori, I should have listened to you when I watched that live. Yeah, I should have listened to what you said, because you're going to need to go through your trial and error and figure it out. So hopefully this is going to save you just a little bit of that time that I went through. And, you know, I will just take a moment here. Obviously, you know, we both help people with these types of issues. And, you know, if any of this is resonating, do please reach out. Feel free to comment. But we also know that when you get to a certain level, sometimes you don't want to publicly comment. You don't want people to know. So, it is a safe space to come in and talk to us about where you're at. And that is also why we created the income explosion mastermind and retreat that we're running later this year, and that's going to be held in Bali, because we wanted to create that safe space for those successful women that where you can expand, where you can get to know yourself and what's going on and identify those things in a really short period of time, and to do that in a safe space without judgment and away from the day to day, so you can take off the blinders and really see, and where you have those trusted mentors and friends that can really shine some light on things. So that's such an important piece. And I will say that flip side of it, I can look back and be like, yeah, that coach said that one said that, I should have listened. So hopefully you're listening now, and we'll save you some time.
Yeah. No, it's like Lori, your example, it's just one example of how you can feel stuck. You're stuck, or something's not right, but but you keep pushing through, you keep doing what has worked for you before. There's this confusion, there's this frustration sometimes. There may even still be the confidence that you know what the fuck you're doing, right? But it's just figuring out that missing piece, and there's nothing wrong. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen probably multiple times. It's part of the journey. And if you know that's going to happen and are open to, when it happens, going, oh, okay, I need to figure out now what that missing piece is, right? It creates an easier way to go about getting through that particular part of your journey. I'll share, as far as my experience, you may know it's not a strategy problem. You're like, I'm doing all the right things. Like you said, Lord, I'm doing all the right things. There is nothing I can find. Now, that doesn't mean a system couldn't be tweaked and processes can't be improved, and extra things on your marketing and tweaks on your sales process. Like, there's always things that can be improved, and they'll probably move the needle a little bit, maybe forward, backward, depending on what you do. But there's always tweaks and things that you can make. But if you know in your heart, you're like, yeah, I know we can do all of this, but you feel there's something deeper, then there's something deeper. And you need to explore that. And what that usually is something with you. So as far as me, I've built several multi-six-figure businesses. Usually it was more on the hustle mentality. They grew very quickly. All of them were six figures in under a year. So, I've been through that transition multiple times. This is different. You don't have to build your business on hustle mode. So, I prioritize self-care. I have since I began this business, creating breaks. I'm like an 80-year-old. I'm out with my flowers, and I have my hummingbird feeder out here, and I crochet, and I unapologetically have, interesting hobbies, and I love them. And I will take time to do those things. I go on vacations with girlfriends. I do all of the things, right? I'm taking care of myself. I'm prioritizing my health. I've worked with a trainer. I go to acupuncture every 2 weeks. I've done that for 7 years. Like, I prioritize self-care. I am taking care of myself. So what's the problem? Sometimes there's a deeper level you have to go to. Sometimes self-care doesn't just look like taking a bubble bath every night. And it doesn't just look like taking a break and going to read a book and having a great sleep routine. Don't get me wrong. All of those are self-care. Those are very, very necessary, right? So I'm not saying don't do those, because those don't count. You absolutely have to do those. But sometimes you have to explore other avenues of self-care, and sometimes you actually have to cut back on other things and prioritize that even more, even when it feels like you're like, why? What? This isn't going to make any sense. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs happen when you actually go to a next level with exploring you and taking care of you. You know this, Lori. But it's, taking all the breaks, doing all the things. I'm like, I got that. I got this covered. I got this. That's not my problem. I told myself that for months. That was my fucking problem. And I'm fine. Like it's part of the journey. So now I explore other avenues of self-care. I meditate every morning. I'm doing other things to go to a deeper level within myself, explore other things that maybe I don't even realize that I need to explore. Yeah. And it makes a world of difference. Like I can't even verbally describe. Those of you that are out there that have gone through this part of the journey to first six figures, multiple six figures to seven figures, probably know this is part of the journey. Yeah. And it has to be part of the journey. But it's not talked about enough that it has to be a priority.
Yeah, it isn't. And like you see people like, and myself included, I'll say things like, oh, you can work way less and, make way more. And, like, yeah, how the fuck do they do that? I'm just going to go to the beach all day. That's self-care. And yeah, those things are really important. And I was the same way. It's like, okay, I'm eating healthy, I'm exercising, I'm, getting massages, I'm doing the things. And I was doing okay, but the thing is I started to really recognize that there was that deeper layer, and a lot of it wasn't related necessarily to my business, but it was necessary for me to do this work in order to make my business work. And I also want to note that I think, because like you said, you've gone to multiple six figures multiple times in your business, you've had a lot of success. But the difference between those businesses, and I've had a lot of success in stuff too, is that this is a passion business. Like this is my purpose. Like this is what I'm meant to be doing. And that is what makes it different, because it is so fucking personal and there's so much tied up in it. Like your trust, your self-image, your people pleasing, like just so much that when you're in that, you can do the hustle mode and be fine, and it might burn you out because it's not the right thing for you, but you can have a lot of success because you can put up those boundaries a little harder. But a lot of times what I found, for myself included, was that it's hard sometimes to have those boundaries with them. And I'm not just talking about, again, boundaries with, okay, I'm taking my break now, because yes, that's great. But boundaries, I'm going to go when we're talking about taking care of yourself and going to a deeper level, that might mean that you don't have boundaries around your schedule sometimes because you've set aside time to go for that walk or to go spend time with your husband or to fucking go crochet. And every time you sacrifice things and you compromise those things for the good of growing your business, you are sacrificing yourself. But there is also a deeper level reason a lot of times when you're doing that. And that's where those explorations come in. And it's not talked about a lot, and it's not super sexy to talk about marketing and sales. That's not what people want to hear. Oh, you've done a lot of work. Now you need to go deeper and do even harder fucking work. That's not what you want to hear. I get it. But it's necessary in order not just to move to that next level, but to sustain it. So if you found that you have big spikes and then you have big drops, or that you've had a really good growth, but now you've just hit a plateau, this is you we're talking to. Okay, so if you can't maintain those big months, or you can't keep climbing, you've kind of leveled out, or maybe even your income has started to drop, that's a sign that this is very, very relevant for you, that it's not your systems or your strategy. Those are probably good. Yes, you need to adjust those as you grow. And obviously, Mario, that's what you do. But you help them to really recognize what that is. But it is deeper. And it might be that you recognize that your whole life you've been prioritizing other people ahead of yourself. And that's not going to work in a passion-driven business. You have to put yourself first. If you are the face of your business, if you're the authority, you have to be that authority, and you have to be in integrity with that version of you. And if you're not going to let yourself grow. You're going to put up boundaries around yourself. You're going to put up walls that are going to stop your growth until you do this deeper work. And I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in many clients, and it will happen. And it's not going to be just easy to unlock it. I will say that. But once you do, it is easy. Once you realize how easy it can be, and I'm going to tell you, my biggest months have been when I allowed it to be easy. Every single time. When I look back, try to analyze, okay, because again, I need to do that research, the trial and the error and all of that. Like, what did I do? How did I make that much money, right?
Right.
I followed what actually felt right. I didn't make myself wrong because I wasn't in meetings all day, because I wasn't doing the actions. I was doing the things that I was actually called to do. If I was wanting to go spend time with my husband, I was doing that. If I wanted to go meditate, it's not just about scheduling those things either. It's really listening to your body and what is needed at this point in order for you to keep going.
Mm-hmm. No, to absolutely agree. It's the big difference is, yes, there's going to be more systems you need to put in place. There's going to be more processes that you put in place. Your team and resources are going to need to expand. So you're going to need to set those up well to actually be able to grow to the next level. So all of these are important. You're going to have to adopt different marketing strategies and different sales strategies. Sorry, my voice is starting to go. But those are all have to be part of getting from the first 6 to multi-6 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody talks about that. This is what not everybody talks about. Kind of the down and dirty of how you have to change to allow that growth to actually happen, and how you have to adopt a different way to do things, a different mindset, and get very in touch with you. Because when it is your passion project, you are wholeheartedly involved. Your heart, your energy, your everything, which that means, I hesitate to say the good and the bad because I don't feel like there's bad, but there's, positive and negative stuff. It's all in there because it is your whole heart, your whole body that comes with the positive and negative. And the negative part that either you aren't aware of, maybe you are, and you haven't addressed, that's going to show up, and it manifests itself in very weird ways in business. It can make it difficult to identify that that's the problem. But if you are proactive with doing that exploration and doing that work and that education as you grow, it's only up from here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like we need to do a whole live on how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just looking at what time it is. And like, I could talk so much more, and there's so many different pieces of this, the self-trust, the confidence, like all of these things that come with it, and then why they're not where they need to be. So I think we do go on. I don't even remember what our next topic is on our next session, but we do have another one of these coming up soon.
On June 4th, Leading with Power, What It Takes to Be a 7-Figure Leader. So we've covered up to 6. Yay, you've made it. I'm doing all the things right. Oh, wait, now how do I do multiple 6? This is how you do multiple 6. Next time, we're going to come in with leading with power and being that 7-figure leader and getting to that being that 7-figure business owner.
Yeah. And I'm going to say it's something you can start right now, no matter how much you're making. So please tune in for that. And if you've liked what we've said, as we mentioned, go ahead, reach out to us, have a conversation. Obviously, feel free to share questions in the comments. We will respond. If you're watching the replay, give us a hashtag replay so we know that you're watching. But feel free to just message either one of us because we understand that this can be some vulnerable stuff and you may not want to share it publicly, and that's totally fine. But if you feel like you are at a point where maybe it's a feeling, this is probably for you. And on that note, too, as I mentioned, we do have the Income Explosion Mastermind and Retreat coming up. Which we're going to do all of this work with you, and we're going to do it very quickly. So go ahead and message us about that as well. Otherwise, awesome. Until next time, thank you for joining us for Redefining Entrepreneurship. We will catch you on June 4th, as you mentioned, and we will be talking about what it takes to go into 7 figures and become that 7-figure leader in your next level self. I'll talk to you soon.